Welcome to Sometimes There's Side Eye, a podcast about two friends having real and unfiltered conversations about dogs and people. Listen as we talk about our lives with dogs, training, behavior, share some laughs, and a whole lot of banter. I'm Heather.
And I'm Christy. This episode is part of our sports series. If you haven't gone back and listened, we encourage you to start with episode 37 to get an introduction to dog sports. What are we talking about today, Heather?
Today, we have a special guest. We have Jessica Stricker with us, and we are going to be talking about two different topics. I'm excited for a 2-for-1 episode. We are going to be talking about trick testing and how to get trick titles. And then we are also going to talk about disc. So we're super excited and happy to have you. Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah,
Thanks
welcome.
for having me.
Absolutely. And I'm excited because disc is one of the sports that I've never done. I've never practiced. So we will learn right along with you.
Disc is one of my favorites, so I'm excited to talk about it.
Okay, well, why don't we get trick out of the way then?
Yeah.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Love trick training too, so
I've seen some of the tricks you've trained and they're amazing and they go right along with disc. So it all makes sense.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we like to start with a question for all of our guests of what dogs do you live with and what is your favorite thing about each of them?
So I have two Australian Shepherds. One's name is Ivy. She's 7 years old, and my other is Riddler. Or actually, she's 6. She turned 7 this year, and he is 4 years old. And I would say my favorite thing about both of them is Ivy is just like crazy intelligent. You give her something to do, and she will try to figure it out. It's so fun to watch her think.
Mm.
And then Riddler is just everyone who knows Riddler, he's Riddler. He's just the best emotional support dog. We love him.
Aw.
He's fun. He's sometimes not got much behind those eyes, but we
Well,
love him.
we all need that friend, don't we?
Yes. And it's not to say he's not smart. It's just, those really smart dogs and people who just have zero common sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's book smart, not street smart.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's so funny because I mentioned your dogs on the podcast before. I don't know if I used their names, but we were talking about puppy socialization. And I said, oh, and I was at barn hunt practice the other day and I saw a friend with their fluffy dogs. And I ran over and was like, can my puppy watch your dogs?
I don't know if I remember that or not, honestly.
It was a moment. It was literally a moment. I was just like, oh, fluffy dogs.
I mean, they got the fluff down, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So, how did you get started in dog sports? Because you're pretty deep into it. So, like, where did that passion begin? How did you fall down that rabbit hole?
Yeah, so it all started in college, so it's actually pretty recent. Like I started in 2017, so I'm still pretty new to the game for the most part. I had so I majored in animal science, and
Cool.
and so that's kind of like where I've always loved animals, but I kind of wanted to grow in that regard, and that's kind of where I discovered, animal behavior into dog sports and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I didn't know all of this existed for dogs. I always knew of agility and those super common ones, but once I got a dog named Harley with my ex, she was my, beginning dog into this world.
Mm-hmm.
We started with trick training and stuff like that. And then my first sport with her was dock diving.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of how we got into it.
And was Harley an Aussie too, or was she a different breed?
She was an Aussie border. So
Okay.
Australian Shepherd Border Collie mix.
So you are deep in the Australian Shepherd. That's it? That's your breed?
That that is my heart breed. I will have a Yorkie in the future at some point, but
That's awesome.
I
I know
mean, why
I'm
not?
really out of left field, but I grew up with one, so
Oh.
I want one and I want to compete with it in sports and just have it like just be a completely out of left field dog.
I
Yes.
love that, obviously. Like, I think that that's so fun where people have these breeds and you're just like, wait, what?
Yeah, but I have a collection of Australian Shepherds and then just the Yorkie ruling them all.
Yes. Mine is like my random breed is the Pomeranian. Like I
Mhm.
just am in love with that breed and that fits nothing. I'm a pit bull, like lab, big dog person, and then I'm like, oh, but Pomeranians.
We all have that one little dog breed, I feel like,
Right?
if we're in the big dogs.
Yeah, that's so funny. Can you tell us a little bit about trick dog titles? Christy and I kind of liken the trick dog thing as sort of like a gateway into dog
Yes.
sports because I feel like it's something that people can really easily do at home. They can train themselves if they want to, or they can take classes. So just if you can kind of explain what it looks like and how it's an easy way for people to start to get involved.
Yeah, definitely. So with trick training, I mean, just there's so much you can do with it, which is why I love it. It's great for, relationship building. When I was doing classes, I would always emphasize do training outside of just your obedience, do trick training because it makes the dogs think differently. But along with that, like you said, you can take classes, you can do it at home, and it's really versatile in that regard. There's two main trick organizations that you can get titles through, and that would be AKC and Do More with Your Dog. So AKC, you have your novice through your elite, and they actually do have a national trick competition for those who have earned your TKE, which is your elite title.
Which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I haven't done that because my dogs could 100% get it. Thing with the TKE is that you have to write a script, and I don't want to write a script.
Yeah, because you have to do like a whole sort of like movie
Yeah, like a
situation.
performance kind of thing. Yeah. And that's like
Oh,
the only reason I haven't done it is because I'm not creative in that regard.
Maybe you should ask a friend to write you a script.
Yeah, I have a theater friend and I keep meaning to get her to help me out with that.
Yeah,
And then you have the Do More with Your Dog trick titles. And Do More with Your Dog I love because there's a lot more tricks you can choose from. You can pick from like the different levels and things like that and use them in different levels. So like you can use an advanced trick in a novice title and still get that title. Whereas AKC, you have a list of like 20-ish tricks that you can choose from to earn that title. Do More with Your Dog also has a bunch of different titles from the trick titles to the masters. So the novice trick title is 15 tricks. To get the masters, you have to do 30 novice tricks. So it's kind of like a build on that. And it gives you an opportunity to kind of keep growing. You also have your specialty titles. They're a lot more lenient for, newcomers and stuff like that. Like the ABC title, where you do a letter of the alphabet with a letter of like the corresponding trick. So like B for backstall or something like that. They have a lot of different
oh,
options to do, and it's super fun.
I need to look into that. That sounds really fun.
Oh yeah,
and I
I
know
love Do More with Your Dog.
with AKC, I know for the introductory or the novice, you get credit for having Canine Good Citizen.
Yes.
It does Do More with Your Dog do anything like that?
No, but Do More with Your Dog also for their novice titles. I mean, you can count sit down, stay, come,
Okay. Yeah.
healing, all that is considered a trick towards their title.
Yeah.
So
So
it's
it's
probably,
kind of the same, kind of not.
yeah, it's kind of already things. And CGC can be hard for some dogs to pass.
Mhm.
Oh,
Tiago does not have his CGC, and I will never test him.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
especially with staying with a stranger or, politely for petting and things like that. Those are the
That
two I see the biggest issues with
that'd
Mhm.
be the
usually.
one. And I'm just like, could I get him there? For sure. Do I care? No.
Yeah, thank God the person who performed my CGC took Lucy away instead of having me leave the room because it could be that they take them or that
Oh,
you leave. And thank goodness he left. And then I looked out the
Okay.
window and she was pulling him across the parking lot. But I was like, well, that's not my fault. Like that's the handler's fault.
yeah.
But had I left, we would have failed 100%.
Yeah. Tater got his CGC by the grace of God. We'll say that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, all my two both have all the way CGC A and U as well, so they definitely it's so different based on the kind of trainer or instructor you have too.
For sure.
Some are super strict and some are a lot more laid back.
Yeah. Yes. It's definitely subjective. So, what is the most difficult trick that you've taught to one of your dogs or both?
So for Ivy, I would say like showy wise, one of my favorites that I've taught that has been, I mean, it wasn't super difficult, but I feel like people would see it as a super difficult trick to teach is jump rope. And that one
Oh,
is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to perform for people.
And
yeah.
is she jumping rope on her own or with you?
With me. So I'll have like the rope and I'll be
Her
jumping with her.
little paws, like, what were you thinking?
I was like, I don't know. That somehow I was not imagining that properly in my head.
I mean, there's another version I see people do with the jump rope where they have like the dog, one other dog hold the other side of the rope and the owner hold the other side and they have like two going and the dog's
See,
holding the rope and
Christy?
one's jumping in the middle.
See,
I mean,
Okay.
maybe
Christy?
that's what you're thinking about.
I am vindicated.
I was just imagining her trying to hold it with her little paws.
That would be a trick in itself for sure.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
well. Okay, but jumping rope with her must take so much timing coordination.
Yeah, I would say it helps that I've done sports in the past.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have, that hand-eye coordination because I'm a goalkeeper in soccer and things like, and I played softball for years. But it took a lot of timing and teaching her how to do the cue without me having to do a specific movement to get her to jump.
Mm.
Mhm.
In the start, you had to get them to jump straight up, you kind of put your hand up above their head, things like that to get them with the treat to get them to jump up. So you can't really do that when you're
Hmm.
jumping rope.
Yeah.
Right.
So we got the movement of, when I start to move the jump rope that she kind of figures out that kind of means to jump. And I also use the command boing.
What did you
Boing.
use?
Boing.
Boing. Oh my God, that's so cute.
Why is that the best naming of a trick
It
ever?
really is. That is so, so cute. Okay, so that you say that was not that difficult, but that sounds difficult to me.
Yeah,
So,
that's why I usually say I'm like that one is it seems like a really difficult trick, but if your dog bounces, it's not as difficult. I would say for Ivy, mouth targeting tricks are extremely difficult. I cannot get her to hold. It took me 4 years to teach put away your toys. It took me a year to teach her how to burrito. You know,
mm-hmm,
those mouth targeting tricks just aren't her thing. And
mm-hmm,
I mean, it just makes us work harder for it. Whereas
mm-hmm.
grids takes to those super easy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's so, I mean, I kind of love that at the same time because it's like they're the same breed, but they're still individuals. They have their own
Oh yeah,
preferences. Yeah.
those dogs couldn't be more opposite of each other.
So, what's the most difficult trick you've taught to Riddler?
For me, it was backstall because that dog is 65 pounds and that was a workout in itself,
Can you
having on my back.
explain, can you explain to the listeners what a backstall is?
Yeah, so backstall is basically the dog jumping onto your back. I'm usually bent over and they balance on your back for a stall, basically. And Rid at 65 pounds is a lot.
And I would imagine it takes him some force to like jump up. So then you're also have him like landing on
Landing.
you.
Yeah, he's a lot more gentle than you would think he would be, but I found that it was more difficult doing backstall after I taught back vault, which is him launching off of my back for a frisbee.
Oh,
And so now he's a lot harsher on my back after that. But in
yeah,
the
Oh, I bet.
initial, he wasn't too bad.
that
But
makes sense.
for a hard trick for him learning, the hardest trick for him to learn was rollover.
Oh,
Oh,
It took, he just learned it this year and he is turning 5 this year.
do
okay.
you know like theory on why?
So a lot of dogs don't like being on their back because it's a submissive position and makes them feel more vulnerable. And I don't know if that was the case for him or not. He just didn't, he would get to his side and then just would flip back over, basically, and he wouldn't go all the way over. I don't know what I did different for it to finally click or if he just got some more brain cells or something, but we finally got it.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it's interesting too, like how, because a lot of pet homes will be like, well, my dog knows how to roll over.
Mhm.
But for each individual dog, there are certain things that just are like a no-go. You just keep working on it piece by piece. My current foster, super easy. Like I'm working on a selfie trick
Oh
where
yeah.
I like on my shoulder selfie, and he's catching on pretty quickly to it. My last dog would have been like, no. But rollover was super simple for her, and he's like, I don't think rollover is my jam.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, it's so funny to see how they work so differently and learn like I was saying earlier, I cannot get Ivy to hold for her life, hold a item or anything, where Rid, he picked it up super quick.
Mm-hmm. I was told that French bulldogs do not generally like to hold things, and I do not have that issue in my house.
Oh, that's funny.
Let's just say we do not have that issue. But I was doing research about it, and someone told me that they use a paint roller to
Oh,
start for holding because it sort of looks like a toy and they're
yeah.
curious about it. And then they move to generalize it to other sort of rolled things in the same size category and then change it. I wasn't having issue with Trin, but I did like throw a paint roller out there to see what she'd do. Damn if she didn't pick that thing right up and carry it around.
It's
I just
so
thought that was
crazy how
interesting.
little things, yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
the littlest
exactly.
thing can make a little big a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I really like trick training just because you can also work with what your dog naturally does. And
Mhm.
so you
Yes.
can turn that into a trick, which is another reason why I really like it for an entry level type thing for people to try. Because I mean, a lot of people already taught their dog to do simple things. And when they sit down and they look at the list, it's like, oh, well, my dog already knows like five, six, seven of these things. So surely I can teach a few more.
I would say a lot of the basic tricks that I always start people out on would be Jake and rollover for some dogs.
Hmm.
And, leg weaves is also a really easy one that
It is.
looks really fancy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are a lot of my like ones that I always kind of sprinkle out in my when I was doing group classes as just something fun to work on with your dog. That's different than sit down, stay, place,
Hmm.
things like that.
I feel like one of the times, and I think Christy's going to agree with me, where I really started to connect with Trin was when I taught her her first big trick, which was tipping a box, which was stupid now because scent work. But, sometimes you don't think those things through. But Christy was watching video of us training it, and she was like, "Oh, it's so fun to see you so excited with her." It just kind of was a turning point for her and I, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say with my last dog, Lucy, when I got her, she was a lot. Like she was a young pit bull, and our life was very structured because she made bad decisions if it wasn't. So, like
That's
by the
fair.
end, she could have a 50-foot leash, but when we started, it was like a 4-foot leash, because
Yeah.
that's all she could have to make good decisions. And we used tricks. We would walk a mile or 3 miles, and then we would stay in the park. And I do trick training because I was like, we need some levity in our relationship. It can't always be, you have to be right next to me. So we use tricks. And I think that's why trick training is kind of near and dear to me because
Mhm.
we use those tricks to build our relationship and bring some fun to it where it wasn't training so much of
Mhm.
the like you have to be this way
Regimented.
like you have to make good decisions. I'm like, here's a choice. Do you want to have a treat? Well, why don't you sit for it? So
Yeah.
it gave us some fun time together too. Do you feel like trick training has improved your relationship with your dogs?
Oh, 100%. So I had a hard time building a relationship with Riddler in the beginning. I don't know what it was about it, but I mean, obviously he's like my best boy now. But in the beginning, I mean, what we really focused on was the trick training, and I think it was more because he was just a really hard puppy compared to what Ivy was for me.
Mhm.
And you set those expectations and then
Mm.
you get shell shocked.
Uh,
Heather, does that sound familiar?
I mean, look, nobody can live up to Tiago. That's just
Right.
reality, okay?
Yeah.
So it's not even fair.
But we did trick training. He got his novice trick dog by the time he was 12 or 14 weeks old.
Mm-hmm.
And we really focused, on building a relationship that way. And I think that's what really helped us personally build our relationship. And I mean, same with Ivy. She was always really, really near and dear to me because she was my first dog on my own,
Mm-hmm.
those special bonds with those kinds of dogs,
Mhm.
regardless. But we started trick training also when she was super young, but I didn't even know about Do More With Your Dog at that point or KC titles, or I was just doing it because, it was fun. It was a way to get her to think differently. It was a way for us to do something together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Christy didn't know anything about titles or anything like that until she
Yeah.
met me. And then we're like talking about all this different stuff and she's like, "Oh, Lucy already knows all that stuff." And I'm like, "Well, come on, put a title in your pit
Yeah.
bull. Why not? This is cool."
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like you actually have to spend the money to like officially get the title if you don't want to. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't
Right.
Ivy and Rid have a ton of titles, but I haven't submitted any of them officially,
Mm-hmm.
but it's fun to earn them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I just liked that Lucy's AKC name was Lucy's here to mutt things up. So I just like to
It's a good
present
one.
that.
It's a
That's
very
a good
good
one.
one. I
It's
think you should
possibly my most creative moment.
I think you should say it in every episode. I mean, seriously, because it is so good. That and the title of this podcast are probably your biggest achievements in your life.
Probably. It was a low bar.
I got some creative at least, right?
My
Right.
gosh. I mean, she does make some good memes. So, okay, so Trick is amazing. Definitely an awesome gateway sport. Do
Mhm.
the titles, don't do the titles, just get out there and do stuff with your dogs. But that
Yeah.
flows for you right into disc training. So, can you tell us about disc?
Yeah, so I mean, there's so much about this. There's so many different things. I could probably go on and on
Give us
forever.
a high level for people who what is disc? I have no idea. What is this?
In basic, disc is basically you're throwing your frisbee to the dog and they're going out and catching it for points, is the gist of it. With all the different organizations there's so many different types of games and things like that that you can do to earn points or get invites to worlds and events and things like that. So some of the biggest venues that I know of are Skyhounds, Ashley Whippet, UpDog, Toss and Fetch, Quadruped, UFO, USDDN.
Woo! Okay,
And
so
I'm
there's
sure
lots of
there's even more.
options. There's lots of options for people.
100%. And I mean, here in Arizona, we don't have Ashley Whippet or anything. The ones that we have here are Skyhounds, UpDog, and Toss and Fetch. So those are the ones I have competed in.
Okay. So, how did you get started in disc? Where did that come from?
So, so I saw a post on Australian Shepherd Network on Facebook
Mhm.
about someone starting a toss and fetch club over in Anthem area. It's still in Phoenix, but so my breeder for Ivy and Ritter from the same breeder, she contacted me and she's like, "Hey, I know you've been doing this with Ivy, like just for fun outside. You should come out and try this." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." I'm like, but my only worry is because Ivy can be reactive sometimes. She is dog and human reactive if in a situation. So I was like, okay, well, I'm a little nervous about that. So I was allowed to use, they allow long lines, which is really nice. So if you're
Mhm.
worried about your dog not having a recall or anything like that, or even if it's a puppy, you have that ability with toss and fetch to have the long line as a safeguard.
Mm.
And so that kind of helped me get into it, honestly, because I was very nervous at first with it. And this was prior to getting Riddler, actually.
Yeah, and
Um,
anybody who has had a dog who has big feelings or reactivity about
Mhm.
like they can completely understand why you
Yeah.
would be nervous about that.
yeah, and I mean now she competes awfully. She's totally fine now that she's built the confidence in it. But in the beginning, I think we both played off of our each other's anxieties
Yeah,
Sure.
you
a
both
little
needed the
bit.
confidence. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice thing about Toss and Fetch is that it is very beginner friendly and
Mhm.
it is accessible. There's at least 5 or 6 clubs here in the valley alone.
Wow.
But it's a worldwide event. So there's teams in Mexico, teams in Europe, teams in India, things like that. It's a worldwide organization, and they're basically in every single state in the United States as well. So it's super accessible for people. And you can start your own too really easily as well if there isn't one in your area.
Yeah. I know typically a lot of the breeds that you see, if you watch AKC Pro, their disc, it's usually border collies and Australian shepherds. But do you see a variety of in the smaller, like the smaller groups?
So our disc league started out basically in mostly Australian shepherds. But over the years, I mean, we've had Cavalier, King Charles Spaniel compete. We've had,
Staffordshire Bull Terrier, I know,
yeah,
because we know him.
Pilot.
Pilot.
Yeah, we had Staffy compete. I hadn't
Yeah.
seen him compete in a while. And then
Focus on the dock, man.
oh yeah. And we've had terriers. We've had a Chinese crested.
Really?
Yeah, he actually does phenomenal.
Oh my goodness.
Okay,
And
I have a question that was not in here.
Oh, here she goes. Every time, Jessica, every time.
Because I'm trying to imagine a Chinese crested carrying a disc. Are there different disc size for different dogs? Because I can't, like, that would be as big as the whole Chinese crested dog.
Yeah, so I use Hero Disc personally, but there's a bunch of different disc companies you can purchase from. Hero Disc does have 3 different sizes. They have a pup disc, so it's
Baby
perfect for
disc?
puppies. Yeah, so it's
Oh.
perfect for puppies or small dogs. And then they have the 235s, which are smaller, and then the 250s, which are a little bit bigger. And then, I mean, there's so many different things that go into the frisbee, like how durable it is and things like that, based on the different types of frisbees you get based on your dog. Because we have some dogs that have really tough grips versus,
Yeah.
Ivy, who I've had the same frisbee for 2 years with.
That's true. I didn't even think about that because, like, if you have maybe a a
Mhm.
Malinois is going to be a little tougher on a disc usually than
Yeah.
what another breed is going to be. Okay, so then that really is inclusive. So you really can do what works for your dog. That's very cool.
Oh, 100%. I mean, as long as your dog has some kind of toy drive, you can probably build it into that or a drive for frisbee.
Hmm.
I
And
suddenly am like, I think I'm gonna go buy a frisbee and see
for
if
for
Let's
Jackson.
do it.
So this foster dog that Christy has, every single episode, it's like, oh, I want to go try that. And I'm like, I'm sorry, miss. He's a foster, but you keep
Oh,
saying
no.
you're gonna try all these different things with him.
Hey, it's
I'm
great for
gonna.
adoption, though, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. That's what I'm saying.
Uh-huh. We did have Marissa on, and Marissa has 2 mixed breed dogs, and she
Mhm.
competes in disc. So you can
Yeah.
also have mixed breed then as well, right?
Oh, 100%. So their titles don't like correspond with AKC or anything. So it's not
Hmm.
like you have to have the PAL number or anything like that for them for toss and fetch anyway. But basically any dog. If
Hmm.
they have a toy drive, any sorts, you can probably get them to chase the frisbee because there's 2 options with it because you can either throw it or you can roll it.
Hmm.
And some dogs just it is one safer for them to do rollers.
Hmm.
Dogs just they don't like catching the frisbee in the air, and that's totally fine. And you can still compete at that same level with
Hmm.
everybody else, which is super nice. That's another way that it's super inclusive.
Wow, so that's also a way for you to include safety in it as well, which I really like.
Hmm.
It doesn't force you to do something that might not be right for your dog, because I'm thinking about backs, spines,
Hmm.
that
Yeah,
type of thing.
jumping, twisting.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's
Hmm.
some dogs that I've thrown to, and I'm like, please don't hurt yourself while I'm throwing to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it stresses me out. And it's not like it's a bad throw. It's just they jump and they just go for that frisbee at 110%.
Mhm.
And I know that's part of the reason, like you were saying with Marissa competing, that was part of the reason why she doesn't really compete with Coda anymore because Coda likes to do that.
Hmm. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. So I guess with that, kind of with that in mind, do you recommend people who participate in disc focus on conditioning with their dogs first?
So not necessarily like just getting started.
Hmm.
Um, I would say, come out, see if you like it. If you're going to condition your dog, it's mostly if you want to compete at a higher level, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously it's great to condition your dog. It's great exercise for your dog. A lot of the dogs that have come out who have never done sports before and are competing on our club have lost like weight and, gained muscle and gotten into shape just by competing with the club and
Mm-hmm.
practicing that way.
Because they're more
But
active.
100%. But we
Yeah.
have, these dogs that are already conditioned doing other sports. Like we have a lot of agility dogs on our team, or dock diving dogs and things like that who are already somewhat conditioned. The only difference would be that you would want to condition them for sprinting because
Mm-hmm.
usually like a 60-minute just sprinting back and forth. And if you want them to do well, you and your dog need to be able to get down to like that 50-yard line or the 40 to 50-yard line. And that can be exhausting for dogs if they are not in shape.
That sounds exhausting to me. Mm-hmm.
I agree. The amount of wind sprints I've done with Red.
So good for the person and the dog.
If your dog doesn't bring it back and you're competitive like I am,
Oh, I see. Then you're running your ass down there to get the disc because you got to get back and make your time. I see.
Yeah.
yeah, I have done it with, my dogs. I have done it with my friends Whippet. I'm like, no, come back this way.
Oh gosh.
I'm like, it's a good thing that I'm sort of in shape from soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then what does make a good disc dog? Is there a certain type or personality that you think, oh, that really lends to the sport?
So if I were looking for a disc dog, I would be looking for drive first and
Okay.
foremost. Toy drive is a big thing. If they're not interested in toys, there's a good chance you're not going to be able to get them interested in a disc. Sometimes having a little bit of prey drive does help with that as well,
Mm-hmm.
since they're chasing.
Mm-hmm.
But other than having that drive and the eager please and do what you're wanting and things like that and wanting to exercise and run and get their energy out, I wouldn't say there's like super specifics. I mean, obviously, if you're going for a border collie versus a bulldog, you're gonna have more of a chance of having a disc dog.
Fair enough.
But I wouldn't say, oh, a bulldog can never compete because I know of a bulldog that has competed in frisbee
Mm-hmm.
before. So,
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't put anything past those bulldogs, man. They can do whatever they want if they're put their mind to it.
they're stubborn in a bunch of ways.
Yes, yes. So did both of your dogs take to disc right away?
Ivy, it took me, she would chase the frisbee. She was not very good at catching the frisbee. It took me almost 2 years before we consistently got solid points for toss and fetch. Every week we'd go out and it'd be, 0 points, 0 points, 0 points. And it was disheartening at first because you're like, oh, I want my dog to do well. But at the same time, I'm like, she loves this. And she might never be the best disc dog ever, but she has fun, and that's what matters. And that's what kept me going. And obviously, my next dog, I'm really wanting to be a competitive disc dog that can compete at the level I'm at. Because unfortunately, Ivy and Rid just won't be able to get to that level just based on the dogs that they are.
Mm.
Nothing wrong with that, but
Right.
And why am I right that you throw for other people's dogs because you are excellent at it?
yes, I steal other people's dogs and throw for them
Yeah.
many a seasons. I've thrown for probably over 20 different dogs over the 3 years that I've competed on this team, and I will continue to do so. I will
So
continue to steal people's dogs.
that's perfect. I love that. But I also love that if you're not like, if you're thinking like, man, my dog would really love that, but my throw is terrible, that there's other options. Like other people on the team may be really great at throwing and may be willing to take your dog and throw for it.
Yeah, so another benefit too is we've had people come out that don't even have dogs and just
Oh,
want to
Oh,
participate and just want to have
that's fun.
play with it. And some people, they're like, okay, yeah, come out. You can try it out with my dog and see if it works out, kind of thing. Our captain has a border collie who just works for literally anybody. And so, if someone's interested and they're like, oh, well, either my dog would never be interested or I don't have a dog, but I want to like come and participate or something, depending on who you have on your club, obviously. it depends club to club, but for our club personally, we've had people come out that don't have a dog or don't have a dog that will do frisbee and compete still.
What a cool little community.
It's
Yeah.
super fun. It's
That is
great.
very cool. Okay, well, I'm gonna force you to meet up with me and then you can just play with Trin and see what she does because
Sounds
Also,
good to me.
Jackson will be there.
also Jackson is coming too, but she's not keeping him. So, you
But
know.
also, he may go home in your car. So watch.
Obviously, you're passionate about tricks and disc. It makes sense. They both go together. What is a favorite or most memorable moment that you've had with each dog doing tricks or disc, either one?
So I would say for me, it was competing for my first time with Ivy at freestyle is a big one because we have it's my dream to compete at a high level with freestyle and perform for people and things like that. That's my dream. And so being able to finally do that with my dog, even if we didn't do great, it
Mhm.
was just a memorable moment. I was nervous as all get out, but it was super fun.
Can you explain what freestyle is for our listeners?
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. No problem.
So freestyle is basically you're incorporating a lot of tricks in with frisbee. You have a routine with like music and things like that, and you're doing different tricks where your dog's jumping off your back or, doing leg weaves and then you throw out the frisbee or they're doing flips to catch the frisbee. And you just have about like a 60 to 90-minute routine that you do and you perform for depending on what organization you're with, or even just performing I've performed for like Schnapp Farm before for
Oh,
just
fun.
people.
Yeah, that's very, very cool.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that one
that's so.
was super fun.
And I love that you do it even for Schnepp's Farms, where for people outside of Arizona, just a family oriented kind of place that you can introduce other people to the sport and
Mhm.
like show, hey, look how much fun I'm having with my dog, and this is accessible.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to do with your dog. And a lot of people are extremely nervous to do it because you're by yourself performing this,
Yeah.
show almost in front of people and you're being judged on it for
Hmm.
organizations. And once you get those jitters out, it's just so rewarding.
Hmm.
And the adrenaline is just all of that.
Yeah. And how about Riddler?
So with Riddler, his ironically, he beat Ivy in his first ever freestyle competition and earned first
Oh,
place in novice. I was expecting this dog to not engage with me, not care. This is my dog who I can't get to run past the 10-yard line for frisbee. And he just comes out and he's like, "Oh yeah, because they're short throws." He likes short throws.
oh.
He doesn't like
Okay.
long throws. He likes being next to me because he's a mama's boy.
Hmm. And
That's
he was just
awesome.
like, Ivy, hold my beer. Away I go.
Oh yeah, and I was shocked and I'm like, "Okay, I guess you're my new freestyle dog." I mean, Ivy and I will obviously still compete too, but it was just something I was not expecting to come from him. And he was catching everything and he was engaged with me and having fun and dropping the frisbees when I asked. And I was like, I'm so happy.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So that was a super fun one with him.
Yeah. And it's fun when you have low expectations of your dogs and not just low
Well,
expectations, but when you have low
yeah, I get what you
expectations and then they exceed them. It's always fun having low expectations, guys.
when you don't expect much and you get more than what you're expecting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And sometimes
Oh,
that's what you just need to do is go out and have fun with your dog. And you know what? They can surprise you.
Yes.
I love
Oh,
that. So, if people are interested in trick titles in particular or how to get started, what should they do?
So for trick titles, I would say look up AKC, see if anyone in your area is having any classes for tricks. If you're interested in doing like a group class, you can also just look at, they have a form on their website for the different tricks for each title, and you'll find an AKC evaluator if you want to actually earn the title. For Do More with Your Dog, there's a website and they list all the evaluators in the different areas as well. There's also a thing called Spark Teams that they list, which is basically a bunch of Facebook groups dedicated to trick training for Do More with Your Dog. or do more with your dog in general, they also offer animal actors, stunt dog, canine conditioning and fitness, all that stuff as well. And so I personally do have a Spark group on Facebook that I will post examples and sometimes tutorials on different tricks and things like that. And I have a challenge every month of let's do this title together this month, just to kind of keep people motivated and things like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Do you
And
want to
even,
share the group?
yeah, so it is called the Arkham Aussies Spark Team on
Can you
Facebook.
spell that?
So the Arkham, ARKHAM, Aussies, AUSSIES Spark Team.
Awesome. So that's an awesome way for people, if they're local or not local, to be able to join up and get some ideas too. That's very
Oh yeah,
cool. I didn't
I
even
have
know you do
people from
that.
around the world in my group too.
Looks like I'm
So
gonna be joining a new Facebook group over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
it's a
very
lot of
cool.
fun. It's cool to see everybody else because everyone will post too, and it gives you kind of the motivation, and it keeps me motivated too because I know I can get lazy sometimes with
Hmm.
keeping up with trying to train new things for my dogs, you know.
Yeah, and some people come up with the coolest ideas of tricks to train, and I'm just like, wow. And then
Oh,
showing how they
100%.
did it, it's so neat.
It's a lot of fun. I enjoy that little community that we have. It's not huge, but it's nice to have a little community to be able to feel comfortable, ask questions, and post your progress and all that.
Mm.
And it's nice to have a community too when you get stumped on a trick and you're like, ooh,
Hmm.
I feel like I've broken it down as far as I can, but I can't get past this point. Like I know Heather has helped me with tricks before where I'm like, I'm just stuck. And it's nice to have a community to say, "Oh, here's what I tried." And it's like, "Oh, I never thought of that, of
Hmm.
course." And it can be the most simple a solution and you're like, "Of course, why didn't I think of that? It just
I've
needed another
even
set of eyeballs."
Oh yeah, and I've even had some quote unquote, I guess you could call them students, but people in the group that aren't certified to evaluate that have like given me tips and I'm like, I never thought of it that way. Like that was
Hmm.
super interesting way to think of it and it works sometimes for my dogs. And I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah, I think it's really cool because we all have different perspectives and different experiences. So it's cool. It's nice to be able to share it, and it might give somebody an idea that they never saw it from that angle.
Oh, 100%. And I
Yeah.
have additional evaluators in our group too,
Hmm.
both from here in Arizona. But
Is is AKC still offering where you can do virtual send in your video to get your trick novice title?
yes, so you would send it virtually to an evaluator. So they do offer the virtual option as well. And some
Nice.
people charge for that, some people don't. It just kind of depends on the evaluator.
I've always paid, so.
Yeah.
Uh, See, and I do all my virtual evals for free. So because I'm
Oh,
like,
Oh,
that's nice
I
of
don't
you.
have to leave my house. It's easy enough, you know?
that's very nice of you. I'll just
Yeah.
tuck that in the back of my mind. No.
I mean, I
Um,
like seeing people do things with their dogs. And,
Yeah.
like you said, trick training is like such a gateway to doing more with your dog that I'm like, well, I'm sitting here, I just have to write something down and watch a 2-minute video.
mhm.
It's not that much of my time where I'm like, you need to pay me for it.
No, I love that. I love that you're offering
Mhm.
it because you see what it could mean that these people might start down a road, that is really great for the relationship with them and their dog.
Any way that we can help, people build their relationship, I'm all for it with their
Yeah.
dog.
Ah. And then on the other side, if people are interested in disc, what should they do?
Toss and fetch would be like my main suggestion for those beginners because they are just so inclusive, so beginner friendly. And you can go to the Toss and Fetch website, Canine Toss and Fetch Worldwide or something like that along
Just
those lines.
Google.
Yeah, Google that. It'll pop up. And
Hmm.
they'll have all the clubs listed in your area and it'll have links to like the Facebook page for those clubs or the contact information and you can get in contact with the club owners.
Hmm.
And on the contrary, if you're already in Toss and Fetch and want to keep building, I would say the next best one to look at would be UpDog. And you can just go and see what different events are on their page as well, which is UpDog Challenge website. And it's a great way that UpDog is a great way to try different games with your dog as well. And they also have crossover events with agility, which are super fun.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
yeah, there's a lot. Like I said, there's a lot in Frisbee. There's so many different types of games into different organizations, but
I'm gonna have to get my ass out and go and watch some Frisbee, man.
oh yeah, I wish we had more competitions here. Unfortunately, Arizona is a little more limited, but when
Well,
they do have it, it's a
the
lot of fun.
weather must limit you.
Oh yeah, I know some toss and fetch teams do play through the summer. Granted, they are
Ooh.
up at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
I don't play in the summer because I don't want to wake up that early, and it's already a 45-minute drive for me to get to toss and fetch.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes we do evening events like last year when the people who would host it used to have their field. We would play, starting at 7 p.m. until like
Mm-hmm.
10 p.m. So when it was cooler out and it was like, I want to say it was June or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And it's still tough in Arizona because, like, even at 5 in the morning, I think
Mhm.
5
It's
this
still
morning,
hot.
it was still 89 degrees,
I
90
mean,
degrees. So it's
yeah,
like,
we're on record to be our hottest summer so far.
yeah.
So thanks.
Yeah, super excited for that, which is why I've been in
Great.
the house.
Yep. I'm like, it's even too hot to swim. And I know listeners who don't live in Arizona can't even imagine that, but
Oh,
Yeah.
really, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I only go swimming in the mornings or like late evening if I'm going because it's just even at 10 o'clock in the morning, it's hot
Yep.
It's
and
hot.
it's not fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking to us, not just about one sport, but two. We appreciate you being a two for one. That worked out really, really well because they really do go hand in hand. And it was really fun to learn about disc.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I was excited. I love talking about frisbee and tricks. So anytime you guys have questions, feel free.
Awesome. And then
Heck,
if people wanted to find you on social media and follow some of the things that you're doing, where would they be able to find you at?
So my dog account on Instagram and Facebook is the Arkham Aussies.
Okay.
So TheArkHamAussies.
Okay.
The Arkham
perfect.
Aussies.
Awesome. If people were interested in photography, did you want to share that social?
Yeah, so that social is strictly Canine, which is STRICKTLYCANINE.
Perfect. And we can link
So
all of that.
strictly Canine.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you
Thank you
again.
so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was fun.
Absolutely.
If you've enjoyed this episode, subscribe, rate, and share us wherever you get your podcasts. Also, come on over to Instagram and engage with us at Sometimes There's Side Eye.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.